Hello, everyone. Agency Reporter, as you all know, has been hosting a special section called In Conversation With, where we interview stalwarts from the A&M, media, and PR industry. Today, we have the Managing Director of Rudafin India, Atul Sharma. A man of such high caliber needs no introduction, right? Feels good to have you with us today, Atul.
Samia, thank you so much for having me over.
So, in our discussion today, we'll try to understand how organizations and brands can stay relevant in times of such communication bombardment, and how the meaning of communication is changing, and what it means for the millennial audience, what it means for the Gen Z, right, Atul?
Sure.
So, close to 80% of millennials, Atul, buy stuff recommended by their friends and families, right? It's a tricky situation for brands, and I would say brands have to continuously upgrade their communication in a way in which they get noticed. So, Atul, what would be your views on it?
See, I think the way we look at India, and I think this is a fact which I think which has been quoted by enough and more people is that we are a young country. We are people. We're a country which is full of young people. More than I think 50%, 54% of our population is below 25 years of age. So there are too many of us, which is young people, and definitely I think the consumption habits for each one of them is influenced, like you said, by their friends, by their families, and even those people aren't any younger. So I think the point which you bring to this is that are they important in the scheme of things? Yes, they do, and they're the, I would say that they're the largest stakeholder right now in when brands are reaching out. But I think they're also the, I would say, the most uh, I wouldn't say complex, but the most well informed, well educated, and possibly the likely the one of the most audience which cannot be easily influenced. So, and this comes with, because I think one, there is this whole piece around the fact that they are well informed, they read, they consume, they view, they watch, they have a opinion about what they want to do. And it's not only about what they're reading, but it's also about what goes on their visual mediums, what is it that they're consuming on a day-to-day basis. And that forms a large part of how their purchase influence can be influenced. So I think broadly, if you ask me, uh, yes, millennials will determine how consumption patterns will evolve, right from what happens on the social media platforms to what happens on e-commerce platforms. The way, I think, if you look at it in the past 1 week, there are some 4 phone launches which have happened. They all have happened through online platforms. They have happened through events which were totally virtual, and they will be sold through channels which are completely online. And especially in this COVID era, I think you can see that I think business hasn't stopped, and that is because this generation that we are speaking about is a generation which will keep on going with life as usual. They have definitely a limited attention span. They have unlimited data thanks to
Geo.
players like Geo, Airtel, Vodas of the world, and they want to know what's next. And I think if you look at it, brands have also realized that they're also trying to capture their imagination. I think the only one thing which I feel more and more is that we are moving away definitely from the written word, because one thing which I see in the millennials is that, while a lot of them want to write, but nobody wants to read. But everybody wants to create videos, everybody wants to share videos, everybody wants to comment on videos. And I definitely see that visual medium is going to play a huge role in the way brands are going to tell their stories. And you see that, I think brands which are close to the youth, brands which have a pulse of the youth, are also possibly the brands who are doing the best visual storytelling across platforms. So whether it is an ad, whether it is a social media, testimonial, or whether it is a user generated content, I think the brands which will do well are the brands who will understand that how this emergence of technology, social media, influencers, webinars, OTT platforms, podcast, e-commerce, how all of this is coming together, and it has created that mini ecosystem for the youth to help them create the recommendations, help them purchase what they want to purchase, and create that self-fulfilling prophecy that they've made. So yeah, I think that's the way brands are going to speak, that's the way brands are going to talk to these millennials, Gen Z, the way you would they would say, and take it from there.
Sure, Atul. So obviously there is no accurate answer to what you have just kind of tried to explain, but you've put it very nicely. And so, Atul, how has communications evolved within organizations? I would like to know next, especially towards teams, towards clients, various stakeholders. And I don't mind if you talk about your own organization to give us some helpful examples here.
Sure. Thank you for helping me with that, and happy to, I think, share our own journey. But I think before I come to that, Rahul, you raise a very important point, which is more about the fact that how is it that communication is evolving within organizations, and the reason why I say this, because in these changing times, I think if you look at it, organizations are changing at a very fast pace. There are a lot of things like empathy, like for in case in point, is one of the values which has suddenly emerged on the work scene. And I think if you ask people 5 years back, would empathy be one of the values, or would your employer was supposed to be empathetic to you? Yeah, answer might be a resounding no. But I think that's what, you know that's how organizations are keeping in touch with um communication. And that's, for me, I think communication will always be an integral part of culture. And the reason why culture, a company has a strong culture, is because the communication builds on that culture. Communications takes those values that a firm has and makes it a part of the modern folklore. So like for instance, at Rudafin, we are one of the largest independent communication firms in the world. We stand for values like independence, we stand for values like hunger, individuality, meritocracy. And I think if I look at today's Gen Z, they resonate with each of these values. But how do we bring this alive? How do we make sure that the great talent that we are hiring will take this culture and imbibe these values? That's where I think communication plays a large role. And I think one of the things we realized during the COVID times was that uh, you know uh, when each one of us became a separate node. So usually what used to happen is that we had three offices. We had Delhi, Bombay, Bangalore, and every office used to feel that they were a team. But these three offices coming together was one of the things that we used to talk about, one root of in. But when COVID hit us, we all became an individual node in every city. And surprisingly, when we communicated on Zoom calls, when we communicated through emails, when we communicated through WhatsApp chats, suddenly that one Rudafin became a reality, because now nobody was a single office, but everybody became a part of one Rudafin culture. And I think that's where, to your point, communication is deciding how organizations are built. And I think um, we've just learned one thing for sure, that communication is possibly one of those pieces which keeps the entire flock together. uh, Communication is also one of the things which we need to do to make sure that people not only know what is happening from an official communication perspective, but also people want to keep in touch with what's happening with their colleagues, what's happening in the spaces around them. So like we have a mode of communication on every possible channel on which we find Gen Z. So we have uh, we have a closed group on Facebook. We have a WhatsApp group through which we communicate. We have a Zoom weekly meeting on which we communicate. So every possible thing that we have done to bring one Rudafin alive, I think communication has played a huge role in that. And I think every time you try to build a culture, communication will be that secret sauce to build great culture, great to nurture great talent and take it to the next level.
Great. In fact, Atul, my next question was is very much derived from your last two lines, and you mentioned some technology platforms that is changing the way we communicate. So, how is that happening? And for me, with so many different communication platforms, the level of personalization has gone up. Right? How do you chat with a person on WhatsApp is different. How do you chat with the same person
True.
on a different platform is very different. So the problem of uniformity in communication is again it's a big problem, right? And I see there's also communication bombardment that is happening. There's duplicacy of communication. You're communicating the same thing to a person on WhatsApp, same thing on email, same thing on different mediums, right? So tell us, how is technology helping in good ways?
So Rahul, I think one of the best things which technology has done to communication is technology has made communication scalable. So I think I personally feel that the best form of communication will always be one-on-one communication, because I think the feelings, the emotions which you can communicate, which you can convey, maybe technology will never be able to make up for it. But I think the scale at which we operate today's day and age, you can never achieve that on a one-on-one basis, and that's where I think technology plays a huge role. So if you look at it, technology is already rapidly changing industries. So it's possibly changed everything: the way you take a cab, to the way you are educating your children at home, to the way you are seeking healthcare services, to the way possibly you're buying a phone, to possibly you're getting a massage at home. Everything has changed, and there's only technology responsible for it. And humans are trying better ways to communicate. We moved from text to visual medium. We've moved from still images to videos, and technology is just helping us progress faster in the way we communicate. And if I look at Rudafin, just to give you an example, like we are one of those firms which have always believed that technology will keep on disrupting the way we communicate. So we were one of those firms which was possibly the first firm to create an Amazon Alexa skills. So our global CEO, in case you just happen to try it on Alexa and just say what's Kathy's thoughts for the day, you'll get to know what she has to say. In addition to that, predictive analytics. Like every time a brand in an entire year goes through a journey, there are times when a brand will go through a lull. There are brands where there'll be a enough and more communication happening, and if you could predict that, you could be just better prepared for it. So predictive analytics is another piece. In fact, just yesterday we globally acquired another firm called Osmosis, which is which was one of the world's best video content generators. So I think we are pretty much convinced that for us at RF, it's been a way of life. We have to always make sure that we leverage technology to the fullest to stay ahead in this game. If you ask me, people is the first asset, because that's what runs this business. The business of communication is run by people, and I still will stay the biggest proponent of one-on-one communication. But I think the scale that we're trying to achieve, the pace at which we are trying to run, if we do not go the technology route, I think we are doing ourselves a big disservice and possibly not able to do the best that we can.
Right, Atul. While technology is helping a lot in doing all of that, but I think where we need a lot of where we need a bit of human touch is when we are handling uh, post-COVID consumer, right? So, how should businesses handle communications with these set of consumers? Not just them, right? With their behaviorally altered employees, with your stakeholders? How should that happen?
So I think, Rahul, I can only say that there's no one size fits all. That I think I can only say. But my only advice here is that if you can, especially when you say behaviorally altered employees, if you can prevent the trauma that is happening to the employees, then why do we have to worry about curing it? So I think what we realized pretty much early in our lockdown phase, that working from home for long periods completely changes the paradigm. We've got a large set of people who stay alone, and for them, suddenly getting holed up in a flat and being on their own for 1.5 months was definitely debilitating, if you ask me. As social animals, humans that we are, like, we like to see, we like to touch, we like to feel, we like to collaborate, we like to exchange ideas. We, even at work, like, we work as teams. We want to get the work done. We brainstorm. We try to find answers collectively. And I think what we realized is that, if coming back to your earlier question, if we don't leverage technology to bring these people together, they're going to possibly feel very, very alone, and that's where the problem starts. So we made sure that we leverage technology to put people together on a daily basis. So whether it was about that one-on-one engagement, which I would have with my direct reportee, or it was about those team calls which we would do over Zoom. And I insisted, let's not let's make sure that we do video calls. It's very important to see how the person is doing. It's very important, and there's a tendency, you're at home, you want to switch off the camera and talk. But I think one of the things that we insisted is we wanted to see how people were faring across locations, across their homes. And every time I think fault lines appeared, we got to know way in advance. We were there to help our people. We were there to help in case of any medical emergency. We were there to help them in case somebody was going through some kind of mental anguish. And in case we had to rope in medical professionals, we were able to do that, and we were able to do that in time. I think we also realized that just the way we would run our office on a day-to-day basis. So if it was somebody's birthday, I think we tried to send a cake across. If it was a new business win, we tried to celebrate together by just having a drink across screens and just doing cheers to that. And if somebody wanted to do fun things, we said, let's play housey over a Zoom call, or let's do some Bollywood quiz. But I think that's what kept us alive. That's what kept us going, saying, let's be the way we are. Let's try and be there for each other. Let's be there. So I think while I've not answered your question, because I think thankfully I didn't have to address the behaviorally altered employees, because I think we got this trend early on, and we tried to make sure that employees don't get affected by it. And I think that's what we did, and that's what really helped us in a big way, the way we dealt with them.
You still answered that, and it's very, I think, it's a very insightful discussion that we are having. But before you go, Atul, I'm just heading towards the last bit of this discussion. How influential will social media be in times to come? And since the Gen Z is hyperactive on social media, you have in your discussion time and again pointed this out. So they're deriving all their values out of it, right? And how should organizations use this platform in the most efficient way? Can you give any examples?
Sure. So yeah, I think to your point, I think definitely social media is the playground. So for Gen Z, I don't know whether I can go that far and say that they derive their values from it, but they definitely live their life on social media. That's a given. Most of the times I know about what's happening in people's lives from their social media pages and not from themselves. So I think, yeah, there's a point in there. And I think one of the things which I learned early on is that either they have a fear of missing out, so that keeps them that keeps them going to make sure that they are sharing enough and more things on social media. But I think as an organization, we understood its importance. So we realized that while people might not want to share everything face to face, but they will definitely want to share something on Insta. They will definitely want to share something on Facebook. And I think coming back, what I was sharing with you earlier, we created a closed group just to make sure that people share with each other on their social media communities. People celebrate people's milestones on Instagram. People are able to wish each other on WhatsApp groups. The first thing, they're able to send memes, they're able to send emojis, they're able to send pictures to each other. And we realize that actually somewhere down the line, it's not that we don't care for each other, but somewhere I think this generation doesn't want to call up each other and say, wish you a very happy birthday. They're very happy sending a text, sending an emoji, sending a video, and being happy with it. And I think it's just about understanding them. Well, like somebody said, like if you can't change them, be a part of them. So we've done that effectively, in the sense we've understood them. We understand how they behave, how they like to consume content, and we just made sure that we communicate to them in the way they like. And I think we learned something new in the process, and I'm sure we were able to communicate our side of the story to them.
And I think there's no need to change it. So great. Thank you so much, Atul, for such an amazing discussion.
Thank you, Rahul. Thank you so much for taking the time and having me on this platform. Thank you.
Thank you so much. I definitely think there are a couple of really good points that you made. Appreciate it, and really thank you again for joining us. See you next time.
Thank you, Rahul. Thanks so much.